Yo, what's good, guys? Going to be working on another video today about the new PTB changes. I'm going to be focusing on the perks in particular. There's a lot of changes that we kind of knew were coming. Some of them were left a little bit more vague when they made the initial announcement, but we got some more concrete answers on what these perks initially will look like. Obviously, these can change as the PTB gets updated before the version goes live for the mid-chapter patch, but I'm going to look at what we initially have and give you some of my initial responses to seeing some of these buffs and nerfs and adjustments that the devs made. So the first survivor perk that we have that's being changed is Blood Pact here. Originally, it was a perk that allowed you to see the obsession when you were injured, and the obsession would see you. If you had this perk, it decreased the chances that you would be the obsession, and it would allow the after the heal, if one of you healed the other, you would both get a slight haste effect, about 7% movement speed bonus, which was a minimal amount, a little bit less than what Hope, I believe, gives you, but still enough that you could see a difference. But the problem was that it was only over a slight duration, so now you have this buff where as long as the two survivors post-heal stay within 16 meters of each other, you keep this sort of haste speed boost, I guess indefinitely. So say you heal at a gen, you guys can work on a gen together, and once the killer shows up, you can both run away together and have this speed boost, which will make it more difficult for them to catch up. The next here is Any Means Necessary. So this is the perk that allows you to reset pallets. That's kind of what most people know it as. I don't know if people know it by name. But the big change that we're getting here is that instead of it being 120 seconds of cooldown at tier 3, you now have it reduced to 60. So you can reset pallets every minute now if you happen to find unbroken pallets. For the people, just added a score event, so this really doesn't change the perk all that much whatsoever. It really doesn't change the utility of it at all. You just get a few extra blood points now. Which is nice, because I think initially you weren't getting any blood points for that heal that you could have done, so giving it some blood points for a heal is a nice little touch. So the next perk actually is Slippery Meat. So this is the perk that for a long time was pretty much never used. It allows you to get 3 extra hook attempts. It used to increase your chances of getting out of bear traps, but they kind of acknowledged that they don't want it to punish one killer more than it would others. They don't want it to be a specific sort of character counter type meta with perks in general, so they're kind of getting rid of that with Slippery Meat, which is good. You don't want like someone like Trapper, who's already pretty mediocre as a killer at best, to get extra screwed over by one perk being run for basically no reason. The other buff that they added is that you now get an additional 4% on each of your unhook attempts, which, when doing the math, if you max out your up the ante, if you have 4 people running up the ante and everyone's alive, and all 4 survivors bring the Vigo's Jar of Salty Lips offering, which increases your luck by 3% per offering, you actually have roughly a 99% chance of successfully Kobeing. The next perk is Technician. So this is a perk that's pretty much designed to aid new players, and that's about it. It reduces the noise and hearing distance for generator repair sounds, which is not immensely, I guess, effective. It doesn't really affect the match all that much. The main aspect of the perk is that in the past, you would have a 50% chance whenever you would miss a skill check that there would be no skill check sound notification that would be given to the killer, even though it would still explode and reduce progress. The problem is that it was a 50% chance, so the fact that there was RNG associated with a perk that's already only semi-meta for completely new players that are still struggling with skill checks regularly, that didn't really make sense. So they're making it 100%. The trade-off is that, you know, if you decide to make it so that way there's never a chance of alerting the killer when you miss a skill check, you now suffer an additional 3% loss in progress, which is a fine trade-off. It really shouldn't be a perk that's seen at top level whatsoever. You know, I could see it being a perk that's nice for people that really struggle with doctor skill checks, you know, the impossible skill check doctor with Huntress Lullaby and Overcharge and things like that. Unnerving Presence maybe as well. But this is a perk that really is just a buff to the newer players that want to use this perk, and I think that's a good thing for the health of the game overall. So the last Survivor perk that I'm going to talk about is We're Gonna Live Forever. So this perk has been a center of attention, a point of contention, I guess, for a lot of Survivor players for a long time. So it's a David teachable. It's a perk that comes free with the game. You can unlock it without having to spend any money on additional DLC. He's a character that comes with the game, and it's a perk that for a long time has been completely centered around additional blood points. So the main point of the perk in the past has been that you can get tokens. For each token, you get a 25% stackable bonus for additional blood point rewards in the end of the game. So if you get 4 tokens at the end of the game, you literally just get double blood points. Now, they said in the announcement about a week ago that there would be additional ways to gain tokens, but they only list 4 ways, which is to perform a safe hook rescue, take a hit to protect a survivor, which, you know, is just a protection hit. Those 2 were already listed. Everyone knew about those. The additional 2 things that they listed here, rescue a survivor by stunning the killer with a pallet, or rescue a survivor by blinding the killer with a flashlight, so, you know, a pallet save or a flashlight save. As far as I know with flashlights that was already a thing, and I believe pallet saves did the same. You already got tokens from those things. The only thing that's different is those are now explicitly listed in the perk's description. So that really doesn't change all that much as far as getting the additional blood points. The big change is at the top here. So when healing another survivor in the dying state, your healing speed is increased by 100%. So dying state means it's when you're slugged. This becomes a ridiculously meta perk, in my opinion. Not only do you have the chance to get additional blood points, which is already a nice, appealing aspect of the perk, but this almost becomes better than Unbreakable. You know, Unbreakable has the neat aspect of being able to pick yourself up, and it has the 35% additional heal speed that's attached to it for your self-recover speed. But the fact that you essentially get Will Make It whenever healing someone that's slugged, you get double healing speed. So you can go over and pick up another survivor who's at 0 recovered in 8 seconds. Just by yourself. That's insanely strong. So I would expect, this is really the biggest change that comes with this patch as far as the survivor perks are concerned. This is an insanely strong perk. The ability to just double heal and alleviate slug pressure, which is really essential for killers at top level. I wouldn't be surprised if this sees a slight nerf. But I also really wouldn't be surprised if they just kind of left it, because it's such a niche perk as far as the in-game effect, since you really only get use out of it if the killer slugs. But I think a lot of more experienced players know that at higher ranks against good survivors and with good killer players, they're going to slug to create additional pressure, and this just allows a team to alleviate that pressure so easily. Really in a more effective way than Unbreakable ever did. So I don't know. We'll have to see how this plays out, but this is an insanely strong buff. So if you don't already have this perk, I think a lot of people do, but you should be going out of your way right now on your live account to unlock this teachable. So next I'm going to talk about the killer perks real quick. There isn't really much to say about most of these perks that are different from the initial announcement, but I'll touch on them real quickly. So the first one here is Trail of Torment. This is the exact same as they kind of announced it. So in the past, this was a perk right here where when a killer would kick a Jinn, they would go into undetectable for a set amount of time. Now, instead, basically, the killer can kick a gen, and they stay undetectable until one of two conditions are met. So either the undetectable status effect will remain effective until that generator stops regressing, so, you know, a survivor needs to come over and at least tap the gen, which allows you to kind of semi-camp the gen if you want as a mix-up, to kick a gen, hide behind something, and almost soft patrol it in a way that maybe you would use Insidious, but I think it has more utility than Insidious would. I think Forced Penance here is not all that strong. It, you know, they talk about how it has some interesting applications, but the duration seems to be a little low. A buff of 20 seconds across the board is almost nothing. Now, instead of being broken for 60 seconds at tier 3, you're broken for 80 seconds. Broken effect is just not that strong. A lot of better survivor teams stay injured and work on gens. So I don't really see how this gets this perk into the meta at all. I just don't think you're going to see this perk still. So the next perk here is Crew Limits. The only buff that they did is increasing the effective range from 24 to 32 meters. So whenever a generator is finished, all windows within 32 meters now instead of 24 will be blocked off by the entity for 30 seconds. 30 seconds is a good amount of time, and you might get some use out of it now, more than you did in the past because of the increased range, but it's going to be hard still to see how this fits into the meta. So the next perk here is Mindbreaker. So if you see here, right, the only noted buff that they talk about for Mindbreaker is that it increases the duration of the exhausted effect. So the way Mindbreaker works is that if a survivor is working on a generator, you get afflicted with a temporary small exhaustion effect that only starts going away when you let go of the gen. Now, in the past, the exhausted status effect wouldn't even be applied once a generator that you're working on is over 50%. So it only had an effect for the first half of a gen, which really made it almost unusable ever. So not only did they buff this perk from the 3 seconds to 5 seconds, I tested this already. They actually got rid of the stipulation that it only works on generators that are under 50%. This is now going to be applied every time you touch a gen. Always. You get 5-second exhaustion. I think this perk actually becomes usable. I could see stealth killers like a Ghostface, like a Wraith, like a Myers, a Pig, even, you know, killers with small terror radiuses that run monitor like a Deathslinger or a Hag. You now prevent people from just letting go of a gen when you show up and sprint bursting away. So really the last perk that I need to talk about here is Thanatophobia. So they removed the heal speed penalty and increased the penalty on other actions. So it now affects Repair, Sabo, and now Totem Cleansing, which it didn't in the past. But it got rid of the penalty to healing, which was really what made it decently strong. So the issue now is that a 20% repair speed debuff compared to the old 16% maximum doesn't really change that much. I don't really see how this perk becomes that much more meta. Sure, people who might have run it in the past on builds like, you know, Forever Freddy or something will probably see a slight uptick, but the fact that you can alleviate the debuff pressure more easily because it no longer affects heal speed, I'm not sure that this is even a buff. This might actually be a nerf to Thanatophobia. The last perk to talk about is Pop Goes the Weasel. So instead of having 60 seconds to kick a gen after you get a hook, you now only have 45 seconds. This doesn't nerf the amount that you regress off of a gen, which keeps it very, very strong and meta. The only thing that it now forces is a little bit more of a decision to be made by the killer. You might have to give up on a chase more quickly to be able to get your kick. So you now are forced with a decision to continue chasing a survivor or stop off to get the kick and then resume a chase, which gives the survivor some distance. So yeah, that pretty much does it. That covers all the perks that are being changed in this new mid-chapter update, at least for the PTB. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought about the video, and what your opinions are on some of these perks. You're gonna run We're Gonna Live Forever? You see Mindbreaker in your future? Let me know. I might do some more flushed out videos on these perks, especially with We're Gonna Live Forever, if it really does have the kind of meta-changing impact I'm expecting. So enjoy the PTB I'm going to be playing as well, and as always, I will see you next time, guys. Peace.